Hello, YouTube friends. I'm so glad you're here with me today. My name's Sarah. If you've not been here before, I used to own a quilt shop in Pennsylvania named the Littlefoot Quilt Shop. So some of my friends call me Sarah from the Foot. I'm here today to show you how simple it is to make this Emily's Star block using our top piecing foundation sheets. It's so easy, you're not gonna believe it. I've been meaning to make a video for ages and put it up here on YouTube, and today I decided today's the day. I need to just jump in and do it. So here we go. Our pattern is pieced on top piecing foundation sheets. That means we sew right on top of the paper, using the lines as guidelines, not sewing lines. These are some foundation sheets that my mom came up with back in the 90s. This pattern's been being printed continuously since 1991. When you order it, it's going to look like this. Let's see if you can see that without the glare. And we've had a rash of orders lately, so I thought, I think I'm going to throw a video online. So here we go. When you open your pattern, you're going to get a paper that looks like this. And it's going to have a bunch of units on it, okay? This is actually enough to make 2 complete stars. What I do is open my paper up, and then I cut it apart into triangles like this. Just roughly cut it out. Don't worry too much about it. Grab your paper, scissors, and go. So here's what we have. Now, the simplest way to piece this pattern is gonna be with 2.5-inch strips, which I've got here for the star points, and 5-inch squares for the background. On the pattern, there are other numbers that are a little bit more exact, and you can certainly use those sizes, that's fine. In the instructions, I wrote it for 2.5-inch and 5-inch. I just find that to be the simplest, and I'm gonna show you exactly how to do that today. When you look at your foundation sheet, right here, you're gonna see numbers on there. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each of these star units is pieced with 4 units. So we're gonna start with number 1 and number 2. All right, the first thing I'm gonna do is take a 2.5-inch strip that I'm gonna use for number 1, and I'm gonna place it right along that line. I wanna still be able to see the line between number 1 and number 2, so I can see that line right there. Now, I'm gonna take a 5-inch square of background fabric, and I'm gonna place it face down. I just line those 2 edges up right there. You'll notice it says put your little foot right here, and there's a picture of a 1/4-inch presser foot there. You want to put the edge of your 1/4-inch presser foot right on that blue line, right with these pieces of fabric. Okay, friends, I've tilted our camera, so hopefully we can see a little bit better. I want you to see how I've pinned my strip for number 1 down. I'm not worried about these lines here. I just want to be able to see this blue line here for the time being. Now I've put a pin, and I'm putting my 5-inch square face down right along that line. So it's all lined up right there. And now I'm going to put the edge of my 1/4-inch presser foot right on the edge of that blue line. And I've shortened my stitch. Anytime you want to sew on any paper, you definitely want to shorten your stitch. And I'm going to stitch all the way down. And what I'm doing is I am running the edge of my 1/4-inch presser foot right along the edge of that blue line there. Okay, we can tell this is amateur video making all the way down. And there we go. We're going to pull this out and snip our threads. And that's what we've got. Now what we're going to do is trim it. Okay, I've tilted things, so hopefully you can see a little bit better now. Now we've got something that looks like this, and you're thinking, well, where do I cut now? Well, I want you to look at your number 1 piece. We want to expose those blue lines. We want to fill up number 1. I think the simplest thing to do is to fold this piece back so that you can just see that blue line. You want to see the line. It's okay to be a little bit inside of it. And what I like to do is make a little finger press there, because I find when I make a finger press, my scissors will slide right in. Now with your scissors, I'm going to start with a regular pair of scissors. If you cut like this, you're not going to be able to see where you're going. What I like to do is leave your scissors laying flat, open them up, and slide them right in. And now that blade will trim right where you made that scissor press line. It just goes right there. And that exposes that blue line just like that. Now we're going to turn it because we want to see this blue line. Now if there's stitching up there in the way, just pop it right off, just like that. No big deal. I give it my little finger press right there. And I take my scissors and I'm going to slip them right inside there. And it just trims it right off. That simple, okay? Now, you might ask, this 2.5-inch strip I was using was kind of short. That was no particular length necessary. It can be any length at all as long as it's long enough. So it could have been a full strip. It could be half a strip. It can be whatever it is. So I do have this funny piece left, which actually would probably fit on another one. I'm going to keep it and set it aside. Now, we need to trim this off right here, okay? Now this block's going to ultimately be trimmed, so I'm not as worried on these outside lines. But I do want to trim this off like so. I'm not trying to get inside of this line this time because I am going to be trimming this up anyway. But this piece now is going to fit right here. See how that works? So you have no waste from a 5-inch square. Maybe on your first one if it's a little off, you know, but you'll get better each time you go. So this will fit right there. What I'm going to do is lay it face down right along that line there. Okay, and if on this bottom one I scoot it up, then I shouldn't have to trim that at all. So I'm going to place that right along the line, and I'm going to sew it again, just like I did. I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm going to put my 1/4-inch foot right here. Just like so. My 1/4-inch foot's right along that line, and I'm going to stitch all the way down. All the way. Just right about like that. And that's that. Okay. Now what I like to do at this point, okay, we're going to flip that back, and there it is. See how it fits right inside there? Isn't that clever? Now, I like to take an iron and give it a press right now, ideally. But there's that. Now we've got our piece number 4. We're going to just grab another 2.5-inch strip. And I have a stack of them over here. I think I'll use this purple one. And I'm going to put it face down right along that blue line. Again, just so I can see that blue line, because that blue line, I'm not sewing on it on this paper. I'm using it as the guide for the edge of my 1/4-inch foot. I'm going to bring my 1/4-inch foot right here, and I'm going to stitch all the way down, running the edge of that 1/4-inch foot. Oops, I went a little crooked there. All the way down. All the way off the edge. Just go off the edge. If you're not sure if you've gone far enough, just go a few more stitches. And there we go. Okay, now here we are, and we've got our unit. I'm going to take my iron and give it a nice press. So it's nice and flat. And this is what we have. Now I am just going to trim this edge off. You can kind of see I'm just loosely trimming this all the way down like so. Because now what we're going to do is we are going to trim it with our rotary cutter and ruler. This star is made up of 4 identical units. Here is one of the units. Yeah, I'm upside down. There we go, and there's another one. So this star is made of 4 units, and you can see how easy that was to make. So now we're going to just spin right over here. Okay, here we are at the cutting mat. And what I want you to see now is that at the corners of each of the 3 corners, there are these extended lines. So if you can't see them, if your fabric's covering them, just chop it off a little so that you can see them. Because those are our trim lines. And all you're gonna do is lay your unit down. You're gonna put your ruler down so that your ruler is on this extended line and it's all the way on this one up here. Now here's the trick. You're gonna cut. Don't whack this whole thing off. I want you to start about here and cut, okay? There we go. You want that still attached. See how that's still attached? That's really important because there's another cut line right here. So we're gonna rotate it like this. Put my ruler on those extended lines and cut. But again, I left it connected because I don't want to chop that line off yet because I have one more cut to make. So I'm going to make a 3rd cut here, lining it up all the way down. And there's my unit, just like that. So 4 of these will make 1 star. So here we are. We have made 4 units. Aren't they beautiful? They're all the same as far as their shape and their placement of the pieces. So they are just going to go together like so. Okay? There we are. And that's our star. So the simplest thing I think is to put 2 and 2, just like you would sew any quilt block together now. These are just units that are going to go together to make a block. So we're going to take 2, put them faces together, sew it together with a 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to flip these like this. Now, anytime you're working with triangles on anything, if possible, it's much easier to start sewing at the edge that has the 90-degree angle rather than to start sewing down here at this point. Sometimes you can't for different reasons, but on this one you certainly can. And that's how it's going to go together. So I'm going to take these and put them together like this. I still have the paper on right now, and I like to do that for a while. I'll kind of show you how I manage that as we go along. Let's sew this together. Okay, we have our 2 pieces here. And we've got them together like this. I'm going to put my 1/4 inch foot down. Now, if you can start stitching in just about a couple of stitches is all. What that'll do, just a couple stitches, that's going to help us press the back open. And you'll see what I mean when we go along. I'm just sewing this together, the edge of my foot, which is a 1/4 inch, along the edge of my units, just like you'd sew any quilt block together. If it's easier, and sometimes at this point it is, I go ahead and pull off that piece of paper. You can see we're going to come to this intersection, and we can make sure we hit that point perfectly and stitch all the way down, just like so. Now I'm going to do the same thing on my other 2 blocks. I'm putting them faces together. And I am going to go ahead and lift this and pull it. You could chain them together if you want, but you'll see what I mean here in a minute. If we just stitch down all the way down the edge. time I left that piece of paper on. I meant to pull it off, but oh, sometimes I forget. All right, there we go. And now we have our 2 units. Aren't they pretty? Now here's what I like to do. I like to put these 2 units faces together like this. And I like to make sure that this middle seam butts right together. See how that butts right together? That's what you want. You want those seams going opposite directions. Now here's how I like to sew it together. I make sure that's butted in there so that it's gonna match. And then I go back just a few, maybe an inch. And I start sewing right there. So I'm starting to sew halfway. You don't have to do this. You can start all the way at the other edge. But again, then you're dealing with starting to sew at that point, and it's kind of a pain. So I do that. Let's cut these threads. And I'm gonna stitch, and I could peek, and yep, that's gonna be a perfect center there. Pull that one out of our way. See, those line up perfectly. We're going to stitch all the way down. All the way down. So now we've stitched, 3/4 of the way. This part's open. But if I flip it this way, now I can finish sewing that seam. And it's just easier than trying to start stitching at a point. Yank that off. You don't have to pull that piece of paper off, but I like to as I'm going all the way down, just running the edge of that 1/4 inch foot all the way down. And now the moment of truth. Yep. Perfect. All of our points are good. Now let's go to the iron, and I'm going to show you some magic. Okay. Here's our block. Here's what I want you to do. Don't start ironing it this way. I want you to flip it over. And when you look at the back, okay, if you look at it, it's going to you're going to see how these seams, this is going this way, just kind of is naturally doing that. It's always wonderful on a quilt block when we can see which way it wants to go, and we can just let it happen and then help it along with the iron. And because we left that center a couple of stitches open, look how that lays right down flat. It makes its own little spin. And it did that without me even doing anything. Now I can take my iron from behind and press it, or from the back of the block, and I'm just pressing it the way it wants to go. It just couldn't be easier. Look how nice, and look how nice that is. Okay, and we can now press it out. Fix any of these things that went a little funny when we pressed it from the back. There we go. And now I can take my scissors. I like to just nip these off as I go along, these little snips. Snip the tips. There we go. How pretty is that? Now this block measures, right now, it measures 9 inches. It's going to finish at 8.5. Okay? That's all there is to the Emily Star.
Well, friends, if you stuck with me this long, thank you. Thank you so much. Again, I've been meaning to make videos for a long time, and that was something I really told myself I would do when we decided to close the shop just this last December. This is a little project I've been working on that I wanted to give you a sneak peek of. You'll recognize the Emily Star blocks mixed in with some log cabins, and I've got some other fun borders that are going to go around it. So if this video was fun and interesting to you, I hope you'll come back and check again and see what else I can get uploaded. So subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. That'll help other people find it. And we will see you again in the future. Thanks. Thanks for watching.